In this video, I'm going to try and condense everything I've learned from working with people, from working with leaders, and understanding the journey of leadership into a 15-minute video of, if I was building a winning culture, this is what I would do. So this is the build a winning culture pathway. One of the biggest challenges that new managers have is the idea it's not their individual performance, it's not their strategy, it's not their ideas that's really going to drive the team performance. What's really going to drive team performance is the culture. We know a great culture because certain places you just go in and it brings out the best in you, and other places we go in and it brings out the worst of us. So building a winning culture is about activating all the best that's in people. When we can do that, we can bring in people and they'll immediately rise in their abilities and they'll perform at a higher level. When we don't consciously do this, what happens is we end up having poor communication. There's a lack of trust and respect. And because of that lack of trust and respect, people don't communicate as well as they could. At the base of that then is that we have divided agendas. There is nothing that's taken us from being a group of individuals to being one unified team. After we do that, we can talk freely because there's a trusting and respecting environment. What this leads to is through the process of communication and working out our differences, we come together and there's a congruence. The biggest mistakes I see new managers make are typically there's a lack of confidence in working with the whole group, and so tend to build in one-to-one relationships because they feel quite comfortable relating one-to-one. But what happens then is there's perceptions of favoritism, struggles the team don't resolve because they haven't come together as a group. Another common problem is where managers or leaders will impose goals or impose a sense of purpose. You can't impose a goal or a purpose and then expect someone to give up their self-interest, because their self-interest is greater than their interest in your goal. If the goal or the purpose is we're going to increase by 15% profit next year, not many people are interested in that. We need to go beyond that. We need to find what are they coming to work for. Beyond the salary, people come for meaning. They come to achieve something. So we need to understand all of those aspects, and then we can create the vision that encapsulates everyone. Another mistake is more nebulous, is that leadership is a journey of taking on challenges that we're not ready for, but we grow through the experience and become better and stronger leaders because of it. Now, this is the last of the pathways. We've talked about what you need to do, but the real challenge of leadership isn't knowing what to do. It's having the strength of character, the clarity and the integrity and all of those aspects that make you a leader that someone follows. Because leadership is not one of those things that you can just go through the routines. You have to, ultimately comes down to you as a person and the foundations of your character that your leadership stands upon. I think of culture as this mix of individual personalities. It's this mix of circumstances, situations, historical backgrounds, and it's like a chemical reaction. And what we're trying to do here is, like a chemist, we're trying to control the factors and integrate them so that we have the positive chemical reaction. On one level, it's knowing who's going to completely upset this chemical reaction. And on the other level, it's creating such a strong sense of culture that outweighs any rotten apples. So people really thrive when they're able to open up, when they're able to be themselves, when they're able to share their ideas. What happens is we disagree, we talk, we share, and we expand and refine our thinking. And that's really what leads to better decisions. When we don't have that, people tend to go into survival mode. So there's this level of suspicion, there's rumours, there's mistrust. And because of that, people withhold their ideas. Because of that, we don't get great communication, we don't resolve differences, and so we make poor decisions. So one of the key aspects for you as a leader is to create the operating frame. In any situation, there's multiple ways that things can be done. If you think of the film Sliding Doors, it shows how two completely different realities can happen. And as a leader, there is that sliding doors moment of, if you did this, you would create this kind of culture and this kind of result. If you did this, you'll create this kind of result. There's this sea of potential that there's numerous and infinite ways that we could do it. And that's why we'll all disagree and we'll all have different styles, because we would all do it in a different way. But it's understanding and awareness of the people that you have. It's awareness of the circumstances that you're operating in. And within that, your strategy has to be based on certain assumptions. And those assumptions create certain beliefs. Although they might not be definitively scientifically proven, a lot of this is an art form, and we have to act as if it's true, even while we know that it's not true. If something comes up and shows that it's not true, that shows that our assumptions are flawed, then we change. But we have to operate on a basis that until we're proven differently, this is how it is. Because that conviction in that operating assumption, that operating belief, is what enables the team to work as they do. So your role as the leader is that you create the frame. The frame then creates the culture, because it's a natural outgrowth of the assumptions and the beliefs that we have. And that culture is what drives performance. And performance is what creates your legacy. So you are no longer a doer reliant on your performance, but you're reliant on the frame that you create and the resulting impacts of all of that. Leadership is a change of identity. It's you going from doer to leader. And that means that you need to change how you operate. But also, what you're doing is you're creating a culture that is an expanded sense of self, so that people are not just themselves individually, but they join and they see themselves as being part of something. So this is my framework that I take new leaders through. And I think there's 3 stages: that we build a team, we build a culture, we build a performance. And the first stage is just to map the landscape, to have an idea. This is the lay of the land. This is really the journey that we're going to go on and where things are. So we understand about team, people, and leadership. And then there's the path to performance. These are the playbooks, so that we can communicate and disagree without drama, so that we can build authority in the relationships and the trust and the respect and environment. And then it's about this is how we unite with purpose. The journey of becoming is becoming someone that can grow a team, grow a culture, and becoming someone that can have an impact through their influence. Everything that you do in your leadership is going to be permeated by the value system, by what you value, by what you really believe, by your philosophies. So getting clarity on what is great, what is worse, what is terrible, knowing what values drive you as a person, is that level of self-awareness is what enables you to shape the team in your image. It doesn't mean that everyone's going to do and see as you do it, but it's understanding that this is the belief, this is the value system that's going to drive the way that I operate. Then it's knowing what's really going to make an impact. And there are a few core things that if we can really focus on those, that we really make an impact. When Steve Jobs came back to Apple, the reason he was able to turn it around was because his relentless focus, and where they had hundreds or thousands of products, cut it right back to 4. These are the 4 key products that we're going to focus on. That drove them to be the most valuable company in the world. And it's understanding what is really the 3 core factors that are really going to drive performance. Your culture exists to drive performance. Understanding that is the key to having the focus so that your team really does perform. Lots of people talk about values, but what I haven't really heard anyone talk about is certain values are aspirational. These are states that we want to reach. And certain values are mechanistic. These are values that we do in order to reach these aspirational states of the person that we want to be. So it's understanding what's the aspiration, and then what are the working elements of that you have to have so that you drive the culture around it, that this is the way that we do things. What we come down to basically is that we build this culture around 4 elements. It's around what's the purpose, that the culture and the team exist for why are we here. And this isn't about raising profit 10%. It's about something that people can buy into. It's a currency. How are we making the world different? Your team need to know what you stand for. They need to know what's your philosophy of leadership. What do you believe in order to lead this team? what are the core characteristics that are valued in this culture and that drive performance. Then we need to be a steward of the culture. This is the way that we do things, and we need to stamp out anything that contradicts, anything that disrupts, anything that corrupts that culture. All of this is underpinned by a dream. Everything we do at work is for a purpose. And yes, of course, in most companies it's about profit, but there has to be a purpose for that profit. Profit goes to people who create value. So what is the value that your team is creating in the world? What specifically is your team creating? When you can express that vision in a way that people feel proud to be part of it, in a way that people want to live up to this standard, that's when you've built a winning culture.